What is combatant status under IHL additional protocols? Imagine you're in a conflict zone and someone is fighting on one side. How do we decide if they are legally allowed to take part in fighting? That's where combatant status comes in. It's a key part of international humanitarian law, especially under the additional protocols to the Geneva Conventions. These protocols help clarify who can lawfully participate in hostilities and what protections they get. The main rules for combatant status are found in Article 43 of the First Additional Protocol. It says that members of the armed forces of a party to the conflict are combatants. This includes soldiers, militias, and volunteer corps that belong to the fighting side. But it excludes medical personnel and chaplains who aren't involved in fighting. To be considered a combatant, certain conditions must be met. The group must be commanded by a responsible leader. They need to wear a fixed, recognizable sign so others can see who they are from a distance. They must carry arms openly during operations. And they have to follow the laws of war, meaning they can't target civilians or use prohibited weapons. These rules help distinguish combatants from civilians, which is vital for protecting innocent people. Combatants have special rights under international law. They can take part directly in hostilities without being prosecuted for lawful acts of war. If captured, they automatically become prisoners of war under the Third Geneva Convention. This status guarantees humane treatment, protection from violence, and access to medical care. They cannot be punished just for fighting. Instead, they are detained until the conflict ends and must be treated with respect. However, combatant status isn't permanent. If a fighter fails to distinguish themselves from civilians during an attack, they lose their combatant rights if captured. Losing this status means they won't get prisoner of war protections and might face criminal charges. But even then, they are protected from torture and inhumane treatment. The law ensures they are treated humanely, regardless of their status. The principle of distinction is at the core of this system. Parties to a conflict must always tell apart civilians from fighters and civilian objects from military targets. Fighters must carry their arms openly and act according to the laws of war. If they don't, they risk losing their combatant privileges. This helps prevent unnecessary harm to civilians and keeps the fighting fair. In international conflicts, the definition of combatant applies to regular armed forces and organized armed groups that meet the criteria. In non-international conflicts, the term is used differently. Armed groups are considered the armed forces of a non-state party, but prisoners of war status doesn't apply in these cases. Instead, protections come from other parts of the Geneva Conventions, like Common Article 3 and Additional Protocol 2. Combatant obligations include wearing a uniform or distinctive sign, carrying arms openly, and following the laws of war. These rules help protect civilians and make sure fighting is fair. If a combatant breaks these rules, they risk losing their privileges and protections. The legal framework built by the additional protocols balances military needs with humanitarian concerns. It clarifies who can fight, what they can do, and how they should be treated if captured. This system aims to make armed conflicts more humane and predictable, even in the chaos of war.